Well, jet fuel prices have gone up by more than 3% as of Sunday. This was the ninth straight increase this year, which puts the price at an all-time high, reflecting a surge in global energy prices. Let's discuss the domestic impact then with Kirby from Flysafair. Kirby, always good to have you on Newzroom Afrika. So how much more expensive has it become for you to fly?
Typically, I mean, it has. It's become incredibly, much more expensive. The reality is that previously we were looking at the fuel cost being between sort of 40 and 43% of the operating cost of any given flight. And that is now knocking on the door of about 50%. So it is certainly increasing quite dramatically, and specifically in quite a difficult time, So those very, very low fares that we were used to in the past are likely to become something that we no longer see in the long run, given that it would just be not feasible for airlines to actually operate at those kinds of levels anymore.
And what does it mean then for ticket prices? I mean, we've just had a fuel price increase this week. Is it the sort of thing that then immediately reflects at the counter for people who want to fly?
I mean, yes, it does in many regards. I mean, the effect is relatively complex. The reality is we're not going to be charging any sort of fuel surcharge or fuel levies, which is something that is being implemented as fairly common practice in Europe and in other parts of the world. So that's not something that we're looking at this stage to do. But the reality is that, that, as I say, that kind of base level whereby it's sustainable to actually operate is going to hit us. I think right now ticket prices are probably dictated more by some of the other dynamics playing out in the market. So that's the reality that we'll face there. But, it's a complex issue. I mean, obviously one faces upward pressure in terms of labor expectations on salaries because the cost of living has just become that much higher. Because the cost of living has become that much higher, luxuries like air travel, which is not necessarily essential unless, it's an essential purpose you're traveling for, become less desirable or less affordable. So it's a big snowball effect that this fuel price is having on our industry.
And I wonder if flying has indeed become more and more of a luxury for South Africans at the moment, given that the price or the cost of living overall is going up. Whether you're driving or flying, you're paying more.
Well, that's absolutely it. I mean, look, there's always going to be essential reasons for travel. Thankfully for us, that there's that kind of base level of demand that'll always be there for the requirements to do business and or, other things that can't necessarily be avoided. But there is a big component of leisure travel specifically, which is a luxury. It is conspicuous consumption. And you're absolutely right in that when we all feel this pinch in our pockets, that's possibly one of the first things that's likely to go.
Has there been, though, a significant downturn, is what I'm trying to assess, in terms of people who are wanting to fly for whatever reason? Are you seeing a shift? I mean, I know there's been massive change in the domestic aviation space, at least at low-cost level, with the disappearance of Comair.
So I suspect that's actually masking the reality quite a bit, to be honest, Mbekile. I mean, with the disappearance of Comair, we obviously saw about 40% of the domestic seat capacity suddenly disappear overnight. So right now, as it stands, what little supply there is in the market is being occupied well by bums on seats, because that was such a shock to the system. But I think had we not seen Comair leave, and in fact perhaps even precipitating their departure, was a slowing in demand because of exactly this factor. So right now, market is underserved without a doubt, but I think if in the absence of that, I think we would definitely see a slowing of demand.
And are you having serious conversations at this point about what you're going to need to do in the long term in order to survive? You've got passengers, commuters who can't pay too much for air travel because the cost of living overall is up. People's salaries have either not gone up or have not gone up enough in order for them to keep up with their old lifestyles. Yet you're running an airline, and to keep those jets in the sky costs more.
Absolutely. No, I mean, typically, look, the link between the number of air travelers at any given point and economic growth is very well established. So, what we need to do is something, or at least our approach to it is twofold. Firstly, we obviously need to address our cost base and just make sure that we are operating as efficiently as we possibly can, that there's no wastage, that we are operating at a level where we can offer the lowest possible fares to our customers. And by the same token, we need to continue to plow into our efforts to ensure that we can put as much back into the travel economy as we possibly can, because air travel ultimately is a massive economic enabler. So we need to be able to play our part in actually supporting and sustaining the South African economy so that we can in turn then grow the passenger base and keep it going forward. So it's a kind of dual-pronged approach that we need to take, but it certainly is going to be, dare I flog an aviation trite, but it's going to be turbulent times ahead.
And you don't line up with the rest of us at a petrol station to fill up but jet fuel overall, we don't have a lot of room to maneuver because of the way the fuel prices are determined. How does it work for companies such as yours?
So it's very much the same. I mean, obviously jet fuel is synthesized by the same sort of factories. It's also regulated in the same way. It's also completely dependent upon the price of oil. And so just as you and I are feeling it when we need to fill up motor cars or, take on public transport, I can assure you that it's, we're feeling it in exactly the same way when we pump fuel into aircraft. And for the record, I mean, we don't even bother with liters when you're putting fuel into aircraft. You start talking about it in tons. So it's a significant cost.
Kirby Gordon from Flysafair, good to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you.